Okay, I think we're on.
Excellent.
So I'll just get rid of the Facebook here,
Okay.
and I'll record it here just in case. And we're ready to go. So usually you've got Mel, but today, Mike Salad, you've got me. How's that going to work?
Well, it's you're a fascinating guy, as I'm sure everybody listening will attest, and shalom to everybody, because I'm sure there's some Jewish people watching, people in Israel. So I just said, Mel, your story is quite possibly more interesting than all the stories of the people that you've been interviewing. So why don't I interview you? We kind of reverse the roles, so you can give a bit more detail to what's happened to you, because it's a great.
Okay, but Mike, thank you very much. That's too kind.
Mhm.
I aspire to interview people that are more amazing than I am, as yourself. But my show always starts with a jingle.
Mhm.
Are you planning to start with a?
Oh,
You've got Mike Jingle.
well, I've got something very similar, which is those who watch my podcast. I can't remember what I said now, but basically, my story is a story of two pubs. There was a pub that I had the idea with my friends with, where we wrote on a beer mat, and a pub later when we sold the company. So apologies to people who don't go to pubs, but it's kind of my metaphor. So what I'm going to do, it's actually a little bit of a parable. It's a bit like the Bible, in that what we're about to show you probably didn't happen exactly the same way, which is there were three friends in a pub writing on a beer mat. It's a pub called the Lyric Tavern, which is in Soho. But so what I thought I'd do, because I'm really trying to work out how to do YouTube,
And
is
I will do it.
oh, okay. But anyway, the point of the video is this, which is I got a friend of mine to recreate using CGI the actual moment where myself, Peter Griffiths, and Mike Banahan back in 1983 wrote on a beer mat in a pub. So this is it recreated exactly as it was then. So you can run the VT now.
It sounds like the story of the three wise men on the way to Bethlehem.
Oh, completely. Yep, that's where I stole it from.
You guys recreate it every year. Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
all right. So let's see. I have it somewhere. Here it is. Here it is for the enjoyment of all.
There we go. That's it.
So I've got Mike.
There we go. And so I'm the beer mat entrepreneur, and like Mel, I interview a lot of people, so I find it a lot of fun. So let's talk about you now, Mel. So let's start at the beginning. Let me ask you a question you're perhaps not expecting, which is, people always say, is entrepreneurship born or made? Well, tell me about your parents. So were they entrepreneurs? Where were they? How come? Because you were born in Winnipeg, then you moved to Ottawa. So how did that all come about with your parents? Tell me about them.
Well, my parents moved from Winnipeg, which had a very vibrant Jewish community, to
Mhm.
Ottawa, which had a very small Jewish community, lots of non-Jewish people, lots of anti-Semitism. I'm not sure that they knew it at the time.
Okay.
But my parents moved to Ottawa because my dad got a job with the government.
Mm-hmm.
So he spent over 30 years as an engineer in the Canadian government, engineer economist. He rose in the ranks, but he was a government employee, an 8 to 5 guy,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom was a teacher.
Oh, okay.
So nobody in the family, abandoned the kids and their day jobs and did something wild and weird.
Absolutely. So, and does your family go back in Canada? I mean, do you have grandparents, great parents, great grandparents, all Canadian, or was there some kind of exodus?
Well, as you know, there are native Canadians,
Mhm,
but they don't include the Jews.
mhm,
The Jews in Canada came from other countries, a lot from Europe and from North Africa,
mhm.
and my parents emigrated as a result of the pogroms
Mhm.
in around about 1910 or so.
Okay. What, from Russia?
Well, you might call it Russia.
Oh,
Russia in the big sense.
yeah. So which particular part of?
Poland, Galicia, Austro-Hungary,
Okay.
each grandparent.
Now, I do this with my students when I teach students, which is just to explain to them how lucky they are. I say, well, talk about your parents, your grandparents, because with 99% of people, you don't have to go very far to say, well, and of course, my grandfather, great grandfather told me if I turned left rather than turned right, things could have been a bit different. And of course, it's an entrepreneurial thing, isn't it? Moving from Galicia to whatever. So it was clearly in the blood. And then this is very interesting where you say, Ottawa, not a problem. But as soon as I moved, Winnipeg, not a problem. Lots of Jewish people there, people accepted it. You had some anti-Semitism in Ottawa. So how did that manifest itself? When did you realize they're treating me differently to other people because I'm Jewish? How old were you?
Oh, I was different in so many ways, Mike. I knew that I was Jewish and other people weren't when I was about 4.
Mm-hmm.
I would go over with a doggy bag to other people's house with instructions not to eat there, especially not the thing called ham or bacon, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
But also I was, chubby,
Mm-hmm.
short, left-handed, and for whatever reason, which I never totally figured out, and my parents are not with us anymore, Melvin with a Y.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
So it's like that song, the guy who called his son Sue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I was Melvin with a Y.
So you felt kind of like a fish out of water, which we'll come to in a minute, being Jewish in Winnipeg. I mean, obviously it wasn't really bad. They weren't sort of shouting outside your house, hopefully, or doing anything. We hear a lot of these stories, but you're still feeling a bit sort of discombobulated, as the word goes. Slightly different. Being left-handed is good, by the way. I'm left-handed as well, so that's a benefit. I have more hair than you, so I am still winning that battle. But then what happened to you was you went to a really good high school, you said, which allowed you to be different and use this lovely phrase, which you may have invented, please trademark it, a misfish. So talk about being a misfitch at a good school.
Mm-hmm. Well, I became that's okay. So I'm in high school, very different. I started high school when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
I was like desk height, very high voice, didn't know anything about girls until I finished high school or even after that. And really weird. And I studied woodwork and I studied Russian and I organized the events with students and teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of his events, a friend of mine, Jackie Lightstone, sang a song about fish and life and entrepreneurship. Shall I sing it for you?
Yes, please.
I thought you'd never ask. So it goes, all the big fish are swimming after me. They may catch the others, but they won't catch me. They may catch the others, but they won't catch me. They may...
Brilliant. So you're clearly a singer, as we'll get to.
So I was always swimming in the wrong direction. I was always the green fish in a school of red fish.
Okay.
So I was giving a talk in Jeff Pulver's a conference about a decade ago, and I wanted to say that I was a misfit, and it came out partly by accident, misfish. It was just like out of the blue, this idea that you have out of God knows where, the muses, the weirdos, I don't know. So and then all of a sudden, everybody in the crowd was tweeting, "Hey Mel, I'm a misfish. I'm a misfish. We're all misfish." I wrote a book about misfish, and but I don't think there's any inherent value in the word itself, other than coining it.
No, I think it's an excellent word, and just store that back. Maybe do something with misfish. Maybe it's the title of a book. But there's an immediate learning here, which is this concept. You hear it a lot when you, especially go to personal development conferences. It's a metaphor that everybody uses, which is go with the flow. If you're swimming upstream, there's something wrong. There's something needs to change. You need to change, or you're in the wrong river, or so on. And for you, the exact thing happened was, whether by luck or judgment, you thought, I'll go to Israel, and you went to a kibbutz, didn't you?
Yes, I did indeed.
And you never left. So clearly...
I left the kibbutz, but I never really left Israel.
There we go. So you suddenly found yourself in certain respects. I mean, you'll always be swimming upstream, Mel. I can sense this in you in certain ways. But you find yourself, Israel is your spiritual home. This is not rocket science stuff.
Yes, sorry.
Because it's your heritage, it's your background, you'll be meeting people from Galicia. You suddenly think, for reasons that I now understand, I feel at home here.
Yes, indeed. So it's like I got to that to get that side of my misfishness
Mm-hmm.
off my chest.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm living in a country where I'm not a misfish because I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
But as you know, because you've been to Israel, Israel is a country of 8 or 9 million Jewish
Mm-hmm.
people, 2 million cousins,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all weird
Mm.
because we're living in such a volatile environment
Mm-hmm.
that you have to be a misfish to live here, but at least for other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I hasten to point out, lest you not ask me, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm used to interviewing, as you know,
Yeah, sure.
is that the importance of making mistakes.
Oh, we are going to get to that, don't worry. But so far, you haven't made any mistakes, because see, what I'm looking for is little learnings. And there's a great learning here which you can pass on to people, which is if you feel like you're a misfish, maybe you're in the wrong physical location. This is what I always say to entrepreneurs. When you're thinking, what am I going to do? You often ask very early on, where? So where am I going to do it? Maybe it's where the business might be. But I'm a strong believer. That's why I love going to Israel so much. Going to places where you suddenly feel an affinity. I mean, I'm not Jewish. I'm never going to live there. But for what I wanted to do at that particular moment, I felt very spiritually sort of connected to the place, because you can't really lose in Jerusalem because there's three big religions. There's bound to be one that's going to resonate with you, whoever you are. And then there's the Armenians who are a bit of everything. So we've had this conversation. So the physical location. So you end up in Israel and you have a great ambition. You decided you want to become a successful children's book writer and a jazz musician. Nothing wrong with that. So everybody should have a goal like that.
I mean, if you're a Jewish kid,
Yeah.
with Jewish parents, there's really everything wrong with it.
Well, of course.
If your parents expect you to be an engineer, for example.
Yeah.
When I interviewed you, I didn't ask you why you studied engineering several times.
Well, for a very simple reason, which is, like you, my father was a mechanical engineer. I worship the ground he walked on. He was actually a salesman. And when he said, why don't you do mechanical engineering? I thought, well, why not? And it all went horribly wrong.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you're thinking, I want to be a children's book writer and a jazz
Well, hold
musician.
on a minute. So my dad is a civil engineer.
There we go.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I didn't tell you is that when I went to the kibbutz, my alternative was to study in Toronto on a scholarship at U of T and to study chemical engineering, which would have maimed me for life.
Sure. No,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it's good to have that ambition. Of course, our parents, I mean, the fact to bring in an immediate Beatles reference, Aunt Mimi, John's aunt, who looked after him because his mum was away, looked at his guitar, says, you'll never earn a living with that, John. So, and it turned out she was wrong, but there we go. So
that's another thing. That's the nana banana person in your life.
Absolutely.
That you have to prove something to.
Yeah. We're all doing it. You know, we want to be admired. And, but then you took a bit of a side turning, which is you didn't go to university to study children's book writing and jazz music. I mean, you could have gone to a jazz school, I suppose, but maybe it wasn't possible. So you end up at here we go. You ended up being a professor of microbiology at Tel Aviv University. Yeah. So there's a bit of a gap here from you being on the kibbutz to suddenly you're a professor of microbiology. So just explain how on earth that happened.
Okay. So very briefly, I left the kibbutz to go to Jerusalem to study chemistry because I had a wonderful chemistry teacher in that wonderful high school that you cited, Hillcrest High School. Also a wonderful physics teacher. Ended up studying chemistry. I was the worst chemistry student in the history of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. I actually blew up a laboratory.
Fantastic.
And lived to write a poem about it. The poem is, now I know that sodium and H2O don't go. But I didn't at the time, big explosion. And I had to move away from chemistry. So I moved to biochemistry and then to microbiology. All the time, the music is in the background, but I never pursued the dream to the end. And I never went to the Ramon School of Jazz. I had teachers here, teachers there. I didn't realize that writing children's books is something that you can learn at university. Nobody ever told me.
Sure.
So I did write my first children's book while I was doing my master's degree.
There we go. And just to correct your language, if I was mentoring you, you say, well, I never did. Well, you still could. You still could write a children's book and you still could be a jazz musician.
Oh, I've done both.
There we go. So we will get to it. You see, this is the point, which is, but it worked out quite well, the microbiology, because you soon became an expert in sniffing people's armpits, which I think is a skill that, frankly, all of us should aspire to. So
Actually, truth be told, I was an expert in smelling people's mouths.
Oh.
So the armpits was the sideline, if you will.
Well, everybody needs a hobby, of course. So
I mean, I did invent the deodorant, but the mouth odor was my gold mine.
There we go. So you suddenly became fascinated in mouth odor. Presumably this cheered your parents up a bit on the basis of they can think there's a career there if you solve that. So they're becoming a bit more relaxed about your jazz aspirations. Yeah, you can carry on doing that, but thank heavens, our son is a microbiologist, and you've invented here we go, the Dentil mouthwash. You invented this. You know, there should be a blue plaque to you saying, this is the house where the guy who invented Dentil mouthwash. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Who knows?
It all happened in your backyard.
There we go.
On Oxford Street in London.
Well, there we go. I will have a word with the blue plaque people saying, why on earth isn't there, the inventor of the...
Actually, there's one street parallel to Oxford, north of Oxford. I can't remember the name right now. And there was a pharmacy there that was the first to stock the mouthwash. And I stocked them. I went with my wife from Israel, and we, it's the same way that you admire a little baby. We looked this way, we looked that way, and that was the beginning. But I think that the big momentous occasion when Superdrug and the Boots began to stock the mouthwash, and I stocked them, and I would walk into stores and stand by the mouthwash a few minutes, and if any of the people who worked at the Boots walked over to me and said, well, how can I help you, sir? I said, no, I'm just admiring this mouthwash. It's something that I invented. I don't want to buy anything. I'm just standing here with my baby. They once called security.
Okay, so let's just put a timeline on this. So about what year were you studying microbiology at Tel Aviv University? Let's just put a timeline on it. So what year was that roughly?
From 1973 to 1982.
Okay, so then you come to London, is that right? Around 88. So which year you stood in this pharmacy north of Oxford Street admiring Dentil? What year is that?
I never lived in London, but I would go very frequently,
of course,
to help develop the product. So that we're talking now about 1996.
Oh, 1996, yeah. So you've had a long career of mouthwash and...
Oh, I've smelled maybe 10,000 people.
Well, that should be, on your blue plaque. I think this is something that people would admire. You've smelt more, and we all know people with bad breath. You'll be the person. Mel, would you just have? Well,
I'm the come-to guy.
You're the come-to guy for body odor and bad breath. Fantastic, and there's still a need for it, so that's great.
You know what? Maybe they should have called me Nosenberg.
The gags keep coming. Have you ever thought of being a stand-up comedian? There we go. Nosenberg. Perfect. You'll be in the Borscht Belt before you know where you are, in the Catskills. Up there, They're brilliant. I mean, it worked for Woody Allen, but anyway. So, okay, so what happens after that? So you're the king of underarm deodorant, underarm body odor and this, that, and the other. What's the next event? Because you're talking now in the little summary you gave me of, multiple disasters. So what happened next? I mean, let's pick the most disastrous thing that you did or had an idea with, and let's try and work out why that happened.
Of the many dozens of disastrous things that I did?
Well, I don't know how many there are. I mean, pick a disaster. Let's just do a disaster story now. So it's after the mouthwash, you try something and it doesn't work out. Let's just talk about that. Anything you like.
Okay. So about 10 years ago, I'm 68 now. So when I was 58, I left Tel Aviv University. I had a tenure track position, a full professor, and I walked away, which is strange.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to do my other things that I actually started to do when I was 40.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was 40, I was still smelling people, still doing research, still working on the mouthwash. But I started publishing children's books, and
Mm-hmm.
I started performing in public. So there was this weird professor of microbiology who had a night job playing jazz at weddings and bar mitzvahs.
Mm-hmm.
And
You're a pianist. That's what you do.
I am a pianist, but I started playing as a saxophone player. I started
Oh.
learning saxophone
Mm-hmm.
when I was 41,
Mm-hmm.
of course by accident, and then I fell in love with that instrument, played it for 20 years, and then went back to piano.
Okay, because what I'm told by musicians is that if you, at the age of 40, want to pick up an instrument, guitar is quite good, but actually saxophone is better, so long as you find you've got the chops for it, as they say. Because I've met a lot of jazz musicians, obviously, and so you're playing jazz and you're playing saxophone or piano at these bar mitzvahs and weddings and whatever. Are you in a band? Or is it just you?
Well, yeah, but bands that I put together the same way that you fronted for other bands that you put together.
Okay.
So this was when I was in my 40s. And then when I was 48,
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, okay, can I sing?
Mm-hmm.
And I've always loved singing, but in my early 20s, somebody told me, I'm not going to mention her name, that I sang off key.
Mm-hmm.
And I was probably like you, I'm guessing, in a choir as a youth, and I was really insulted.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not sing for 25 years.
Oh, really? Oh, that's...
Because that's what an insult can do to you.
Yeah, I know. And there's a good learning there, which is everybody who says you're bad at something, in my view, is wrong. Because you see, singing is a classic case of, right, I sing a lot and I've sung in many bands. I've done thousands of gigs in different guises. And nobody comes up and says you're a great singer very often. What they do say is, Mike, you're a great front man. Yeah. So the singing is kind of so I can be at the front. Because I did play bass for a while and it was a disaster. I played left-handed like Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And there were two problems. I couldn't work out how to play the bass, really. I had no talent for it. And I couldn't work out how to sing and play bass at the same time. That was too complicated.
Like somebody should have told you that you have to restring the guitar.
Well, I tried everything. It didn't work. And also the main problem with it was what a bass player does, as I learned, was stand at the back and go like this. What I do is stand at the front and go like this. So as soon as I started singing, I thought singing is good for me. So, but seriously, that's what I say when somebody says, I don't do that because somebody said I was rubbish at it. They were wrong, because you are good at it.
They were wrong. And at the age of 48,
yeah,
I began to study voice training.
There we go.
And then I brought with me a band that enabled me to sing and play saxophone.
Sure. There we go. So, and how long have you, do you still do this band?
Rarely.
Yeah.
Rarely. What happened was, and this is also another lesson, about 10 years ago, I reached the pinnacle of what I could as a jazz musician, because I'm not really that good. I mean, I'm good, but I'm not that good. So I played several local festivals, but I could not perform outside the country at a festival. I tried, I was not accepted. So, but I had performed at a festival, you know, with the monitors and the stage and the sound people. And then I said, oh, I don't want to go back to the gigs, you know, in the coffee houses. And this was a mistake, because this was, you know, the top, and I started sliding down, and then there were no places for me to play. But that's okay. I teach popular music courses at Tel Aviv University now, which we should talk about. That's a great love. And anyway, I'm going to have you as a guest in my course in the fall. But I use this now as a foil for singing and playing in front of people.
There we go. Now our lives are very parallel. So you had a phase of doing a lot of gigs. I had a phase of doing a lot of gigs, and I haven't performed as my 70s character for 5 years. Yeah. And in a way I miss it, in a way I don't. That was kind of then. But if anybody asked me to, I could. And of course, the music business has changed so radically that what I can do, if somebody says, look, Mike, I want you to perform, I say, well, look, I can't get the band. It's a 10-piece band. I'll play to a backing track. And nobody minds if it sounds good. And you do your bit. You can download karaoke tracks, which have every part on it. You can decide, I'll have this part. Maybe you keep the singer on, don't keep the singer on. So let's go back to doing gigs because they're fun and just the joy of being there and connecting with whatever it is, which is what you do as a performer when you touch people's hearts. Now, your Aunt Mimi would say there's no money in it, but there is. And I'll just hold this thought, which is you and I, and hopefully I can get him for you, will be talking about Scott Bradley, who was a jazz musician in New York. And his story was he was doing okay, but a bit like you, he thought, oh, I'm never going to make it. You know, in New York, it's if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. He then invented postmodern jukebox, which has got millions of followers and has had billions of hits. And he's a great story, and you've got the book. So anyway, so you're a musician, but then
we have to bring him on the show.
Oh, without question.
So Mike, I want to make this point now, and then we'll backtrack a bit.
Sure.
So this kind of success, the Scott Bradley success, okay?
Yes.
Even my success in inventing a mouthwash that became popular in many countries around the world.
Yep.
Is the long tail. It's unpredictable.
Sure.
It's like opening a combination safe without knowing the combination.
Exactly.
It's like making a bonfire and then waiting for lightning to hit it to kindle the fire.
Sure.
And I'm not sure that I can teach anybody to succeed because I succeeded. And I'm not sure that Scott Bradley can teach other musicians how to be like him because it only happens 1 in a million between you and I, and between you and me. And it's not because he's not talented. Of course, you have to be talented. You have to have the fire, the kindle and the wood all ready for the lightning to strike.
Now, here's my take on that, which is absolutely right, which is, let's say, I mean, you and I both admire the Beatles. You and I could try and write a Beatles song. It probably won't happen. And also they're better at it than us. If you're passionate about something, you'll enjoy doing your music. And then, as I said, I put in my first YouTube video, you need various qualities to be good at an entrepreneur. You've got to have gumption. You've got to have a good ethics. You've got to understand it's a team game. You know, it's not just you. You know, it's very unlikely you'll see. You've got to have a band or something or a group of people you're working with. And finally, you need to be lucky. And you can't teach somebody to be lucky. You can teach them to recognize it. And the quote I put in there very specifically was Gary Player, the golfer, when he sunk a big putt, 30 yards, somebody said, oh, or 30 feet, lucky putt, Gary says, yes. But the harder I practice, the luckier I get. What Scott teaches people is not how to be a great pianist or whatever, but he's very good on if suddenly you do get 1 million hits, what do you do then? How do you then base it? If you don't get 1 million hits and you want to play live, you can play in a local club. Everybody needs a day job, I would say, as a backup. But it's got to be a day job as you love. Now, your day job that you love, and I do exactly the same thing, is you love to go into a university and teach the student a whole bunch of stuff, whether it's music, entrepreneurship, mouthwash, whatever else, because it's such a joy being in front of people and seeing a good proportion of them get it. Now,
yes, and so a couple of things. First of all, I never defined success as an entrepreneur, as a human being, in terms of making money.
I disagree with you about this because
I know.
No, let me explain what I mean, because it's a very important point. Okay, which is money is the way of keeping score. If you've got more money than last week, you've had a better week. It's just a measure. Money's not the be all and end all, because as I tell people, I was very lucky. It's like I won the lottery. I sold a company once. You know, money doesn't make you happy, but it certainly makes misery a lot more comfortable. So whatever it is you're doing, if people are giving you $10 for it or whatever it is, then you're winning. If they won't give you $10 for your jazz musicianship or whatever, or mouthwash or whatever, bounce back and go down to the pub, write on another beer mat, find a little team and find something. And then the beer mat model is ask for money up front. You know, I'm going to charge you £10 for a bit of jazz piano. I need £5 now. So that's the point. So of course,
that's okay. In your sphere of teaching entrepreneurship, I'm not a success. And I admit that. But I want to explain why.
Okay, why do you think you're not a success?
Because it's not that I'm not a success. The only reason that I made money is because I teamed up with people who loved money and knew how to make it from my invention. I never really knew how to make money from me. Okay, if I could, I would give away 1 million of my children's books. You know, my biggest success as a writer for children is the 3 TED Ed animations I've done, which have been seen by 6 million people.
There you go.
And how much? What's that? How much did I get for that?
Yeah, well, this
a couple of. No, it's important. A couple of Amazon gift certificates.
Sure, but you've actually written a book, which, you know, we meet so many people who say, one day I'm going to, you know, write a book, be a jazz musician, whatever. You've actually done it. If somebody's giving you some money, you've won. Money's not that important. You've got your regular day job, so you're paying your bills and whatever. And
a day job is really important.
Yeah, exactly. But
so I was never one of these entrepreneurs who at the age of 30 leaves everything, lives on the street or in a box.
No. This is put it this way, this is not what I would call a beer mad entrepreneur. Anybody who does that, I'm saying, stop. This is wrong. This is the bad way of doing it.
Yeah.
You sell something virtually. Of course, your point is very well made that there should be somebody in the team who knows how to make money, like a finance person.
Yeah.
Or Ray Kroc from McDonald's, who knows how to, you know, if you've got one good mug of mouthwash, everybody says that's good mouthwash, how to make 1 million and then make a fortune. And of course, they're going to, you know, potentially screw you over. So you've got to be careful. But you see, the making money thing is proof of concept. And you keep trying things in the beer mat model until somebody begins to give you money. Then you scale it a bit. You've got your good team, people working on, you know, the quality of the mouthwash, selling the mouthwash, scaling the mouthwash. You've got a bit of a team. You're onto something. You have success. Then you move on. You do not do mouthwash all your life. You don't become a one-trick pony. So you say you've not been a success compared to.
I'm a big fan of your idea of changing things every 7 or 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I've done that throughout my career.
All entrepreneurs have.
Yeah.
Unconsciously.
But for me, okay, so I made some money with the mouthwash.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy about that. But I'm happier with the TED Ed animations because it's more me. And I was brought up in a family. You asked me about my parents, where values were important. A good education was important. Your social contribution was important. Making money was not the top in the ladder of success. And for me, so the past 10 years, I want to go back now. Before we forget the thread, which we've already forgotten 6 times, mostly because of me. So you asked me about a failure.
Yeah.
A colossal failure. So 7 years ago, I decided to, together with Ron Sternin, my partner, who was in America, and with my wife Shuli, to set up Our Books, which is a platform where anybody can be a children's writer.
Yep. You
write text and it becomes a page, and you add a picture and it becomes. And we said, okay, all of these publishing houses who publish mediocre books, okay, we can publish books that are just as good, and anybody can become an author. There's no big deal about it. And I went to a meeting in New York to prove to myself and to the other people that Our Books was the answer to all of the authors of children's books forever. To make a long story short, I was wrong. I discovered at the age of, 63, that there is a road to becoming a really good and successful children's book writer.
Okay.
Our Books can help. And there's a lot of luck involved, like with the mouthwash and with the beer mat and everything else. But there is a way to be a really, really good writer.
Sure.
And Mike, I didn't even know that. I thought you just sit down with a typewriter. But that's what I thought.
Well, I'm very lucky in this respect. If we take that as an example, which is the whole beer mat thing works because of my best friend who I met when I was 13, who is a writer, probably the best writer in the world. Obviously, I'm slightly biased. He's a novelist. He's written a load of books. He's very interesting because at any time he's writing the book that he feels like writing. I mean, it happened to be the Beer Mad Entrepreneur one time. He's got the best book in the world on Eurovision. He is an authority on Eurovision. He knows more about it than anybody else on earth. He's now rewriting Cells on a Beer Mat.
You sold 75,000 copies, which is amazing for
more. But this is the point.
How many?
Oh, over 100,000. But
and for a business book, that's really wonderful.
Yeah, and I have no idea why. We just did. We were the magic thing at the right time. Because to go back to your idea of in a publisher's office where they didn't get it, it was a bad idea then. It might be a good idea now. You can test the premise of write your own children's book, because I know the publishing industry better than most people. We pitched our book on 10 o'clock on one morning back in 2001 to a well-known international publisher. And the lady said she had the manuscript there because Chris, a published author, he'd written crime novels. And she looked at the manuscript and said, well, gentlemen, please sit down. I've got to be frank. And she hated the book. I mean, I was really angry. I wanted to, but you can't punch lady publishers. Chris explained that to me. So he left and I was really, she's an idiot. Lunchtime, the same day, and I'm not kidding, the same day, Pearson, the lady at Pearson, Rachel Stock, said, this is the best book I've ever read. Now, she was right. It sold a lot of copies. And I have to say, one of the things I'm ashamed of is at the Frankfurt Book Fair, I walked up to the stand of the other publisher with my copy of The Beer Mad Entrepreneur with bestseller written on it and said, look. And they said, so what, it's Yabu sucks, is it? And I said, kind of, yes. Now, I shouldn't have done that. That's very bad karma. But you see, when an entrepreneur says to me, I want to have a lot of money so I can take a Ferrari back to the school and prove to my teacher, yeah. A, don't do it. And B, if you do, just do it once. Because if that's all you're thinking about, then the money thing will matter. If you're good at something, the money will turn up and you have no idea why. Suddenly you're making lots of money. It goes from monopoly money to real money. So your children's book idea, it was the wrong time because nobody logically said that would never work. I mean, you can't fault the logic of here's a way that...
Anyway, you mean my book or my platform?
The platform.
The platform. So this is the thing. This is the thing. You could make the argument 6 or 7 years later that our books is a huge success.
Yeah.
We have almost 150,000 books.
Yeah.
In 30 languages, written by 80,000 authors, on 100 different subjects. And it's all for free. It's free to write. It's free to share. Millions of people read the books, but we don't make any money.
Oh, okay. This is the point, which is, in my view, I think you're missing the point, which is you're not making any money. That's what happens. But you've done something that has done good in the world. If there's one parent tonight reading one book to one child and the child goes to sleep happy, you've won. Now, whether you make a lot of money or not is irrelevant.
But how can you say that? You just said half an hour ago that making money is the most important thing.
It's the way of keeping score. Because if suddenly...
Well, I want to say, Mike, screw the score of other people. Well, this, by the way, this is the most difficult thing for me as Melvin with a Y.
Sure.
Okay? Because on the one hand, I'm very proud of the things that I do for free. On the other hand, I'm very embarrassed because there's a word in Israel called a friar, a sucker. I don't know if you have that word in English.
Okay. I know exactly what you're saying. Let me put this down to you, which is, as part of what I do a lot of free mentoring. And my model is mentoring has to be free. If you pay for advice, it's consultancy, nothing wrong with that. So I do a lot of free mentoring and generally I never see them again. Am I being a sucker? No, because I can fit it into my day. I feel quite good at the end of it. I mean, I've had some spectacular successes, which I've told you about in Liverpool and elsewhere, where I just gave a bit of advice, never got a penny, but I've done some good. And I can point at it and say, that was me, kind of, a bit or something. So there's this, I think it's a myth that if you're not making money, if somebody else is making money doing it differently or making money out of you, you're a sucker. No, you've done good in the world. There's plenty of people who have good breath thanks to you or had good breath. I don't know if they still do. There are people.
There's a lot of people born into the world, perhaps.
There we go. Yeah. I mean, I think it was, I remember back in when you were doing your mouthwash, I was very keen to go out with ladies. I'm now married, happily married, of course. And I'm sure I took some dental and that enabled me to get jiggy with them. I'm kidding, but you know what I mean? So
get jiggy with them?
Yes, it's a phrase. It comes from a song. Anyway.
I love that.
Okay, success is what you've done in the world. And if all these parents reading this book that somebody's written and their child is happy and they've got no idea that you were somehow involved in some way, then in my view, cosmically and spiritually, you've won. Because
so the money isn't important.
Well, the money's the way of keeping score. If suddenly your idea is making lots of money, you're thinking, I better build a team, turn it into an industry, and I get some money, I can keep the money, give it away, whatever. Because every idea has its time. The ones that make money, you focus your attention on. So the day that people stopped calling me up to book my band was the day I stopped doing it pretty well.
Okay.
It
No, no,
just,
it's not that I don't agree with you.
yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
And
sure.
what happens now is I make small runs of several
Yeah,
of
yeah,
my children's books.
sure, sure.
It costs
And
me $5 to make a book,
mhm.
and I sell it for $4. And I tell the person, I apologize that I have to sell you this book, but I'm told that I have to sell you the book. If you don't have $4 and you give me $3, that's also good.
Okay. Okay. So here's an interesting thing I teach in sales, which is somebody says, that looks quite interesting, that book or that service. How much? That's a very good question to ask. Then you're looking at them thinking, do I like you or not? In the broadest sense. And if you like them, what I say to people now is, pay me what you like. Now, I know
Yeah.
what a book should cost or an hour of my time or a speaking engagement, because I speak a lot. Sometimes it's £500, sometimes it's much more than that. It's what I do for a living, so I always charge. But for you, Mel, so I'd say to you, Mel, look, I'll come and speak at Tel Aviv University. I hope I'm not going to be out of pocket, but frankly, I'm not that fussed. But if you're going to pay me something, you ought to pay me something. In fact, Mel, anything you like. Now, a clever person would say, so Mike, if I said $1, you'd do it for $1. I say, of course I would. Yeah, I'm not coming back to you on a regular basis because.
Yeah, but Mike, we go to a lot of meetings, you and me, that we pay to get into.
Sure, of course we do.
I went to TED last year.
Yeah, there we go.
In Edinburgh. Cost me, I don't know, $6,000-7,000.
Great.
You do it.
And you thought it's value for money because that's a good use of I have the money and I will gain intangibly more than $7,000 worth of value of the whole experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are meetings where I would charge $5,000 to speak, and there were meetings where I would pay $5,000 to speak.
Okay, let's go back to your TED stuff because I didn't pick up on the fact you said, I've done some TEDx's and millions of people have seen it. Is that the case?
No, TED Education, not TEDx.
TED Ed, yes. So you did TED Ed, you did it for nothing, obviously, and lots of people watched it.
I got an Amazon gift certificate.
Yeah, you got an Amazon gift certificate. So that's a good sign. So here are a bunch of people who and they all saw your thing and thought, oh, good, I liked that. I enjoyed that. Oh, is Mel, whoever he is, doing any more? This is the whole postmodern jukebox argument, which is once he got his first video of him just playing the piano, got 25,000 hits. So he thought, I'm onto something. The big one was a thing called Thrift Shop, where it got 1 million hits. Then it's the, oh my God, there's money here. How do I make money out of postmodern jukebox or the books or the TED Ed or whatever it is, where people think, oh, that's worth $1, $10, $100. And he's cracked it, which is he has two ways of making money. One is he sells albums online of songs he hasn't written. So he's not getting the publishing. Secondly, is live. So,
but Mike, you see, after making some money in my career, enough money.
Yeah.
I live in a nice house.
Yeah.
I don't have mortgages.
Perfect.
Okay. So if I met Scott Bradley, let's say if one of our students met Scott Bradley and he would interview him and he would say to him, I want you to explain as an entrepreneur how he started out from scratch and made millions of dollars.
Sure.
But Melvin with a Y would sit with Scott Bradley and go over some changes and riffs on the piano.
Sure.
I don't care how he made the money.
Okay, this is the crucial difference between money and wealth. Because money is important because it's a way of keeping yourself. If you're not making money, there's something wrong with the model and you need to fix the model. People aren't buying your stuff for some reason. Okay.
Yeah.
Wealth, and this is a definition I've stolen from everybody, which is wealth is what you would have left if suddenly all your money vanished. Maybe it's your fault, maybe it's just the bank goes broke. So who are you? Do people like you? Because there's plenty of entrepreneurs, we could name names. If they went bankrupt, there'd be parties to celebrate because they are horrible people because they had a difficult relationship with their father or something. There's some underlying cause. So you have immense wealth, which is, well, here's a little test. People will appear on your little interviews, your friends, people. And when you get incoming, it's like all these very important people want to be on my thing because I've got lots of reach. Then you could turn that into a business, or maybe you don't. You don't think about it like that. You think, I enjoy meeting people like Mike and my friends.
But Mike, I'm like you, okay?
Yeah.
You connected.
Yeah.
To your friend, whom you met when you were 7 years old.
Yeah.
Who became your writing partner.
That's right.
And in the music, you connected with other people.
That's right.
Okay, so I in the mouthwash, okay, I worked with Erwin Weiss at the beginning,
Mhm.
and then I connected with Phil Stemmer in England.
Mhm.
And these were people who knew how to fill roles that I didn't know.
There
And
we go.
we both teach this.
There we go. Of
But
course.
but my scorekeeping, um, having made enough money,
Hmm.
okay, is yes, I love to give lectures and get paid for it.
Hmm.
And sometimes I resent doing things for free
Hmm.
if I'm not appreciated.
Sure.
So I don't even, I'm not as good a person as you are because I don't like mentoring young people
Hmm.
because very often startup youngsters don't listen to us anyway.
Sure. Okay.
So I say to myself, I'm going to talk to people. They're going to argue with me. And I'm not going to get paid for it. So I don't even do
Okay.
that. I don't even do that.
But let me address that specific point, which is lots of people ask me to do things for free all the time. A skill is picking the ones where you feel like doing it against the ones you don't feel like doing it. The ones you don't feel,
Exactly.
there you go. And you just say, so I'd love to, but I'm busy. I
Yeah.
get
And,
asked to,
and, and the ones you love, if you get paid for it, that's wonderful.
sure.
And,
There
and,
we,
and if not, then you ask yourself the following question.
yeah.
Am I going to feel like a sucker?
No, I've never, okay. I've done lots of speaking engagements that I didn't enjoy because, again, as you all know, the less you're being paid, the more likely it is to be badly organized. The more you're being paid, it's like you're picked up at the airport and all of that. So I've done plenty of speaking engagements and I've now forgotten about them. And did they take me for a sucker? I don't know. I mean, one of the smallest speaking fees I ever got for 2 days' work was Tehran. I got to go to Tehran for 2 days, which most people don't do. It was the most extraordinary experience and it was worth more to me. But see, wealth to me is things like being able to send an email to Scott Bradley's PA saying, I'm going to be in Los Angeles this weekend, is he around? And Scott saying, yeah, why not? Because he's just a nice guy. So there's that picture I've got of me and Scott Bradley, which was one of the happiest days of my life. I may never meet him again, but, and also underlying just meeting a nice guy who's got all these extraordinary stories, and his book is great, as you know.
And that's because you have money?
No.
That's not because you have money. That's because Mike Southon is an
Yeah.
incredible human being.
Well, he didn't know that, but it worked out fine. Anyway, so let's get to the nub of this, which
No,
is
this is really important.
no, absolutely, yeah.
Who is your internet hero?
I'd say Scott Bradley actually, right now, because I'm focused on this YouTube thing, which is incredibly important. Because that's why I went to see him was I find myself with Chris teaching marketing strategy to students, the same students we've done entrepreneurship for. We only did it because they didn't have anybody else and they were desperate. So we just thought we'd do it. Then I thought, well, we better teach, the big marketing stuff. How does Coke beat Pepsi and stuff? And Chris was very good on that. I thought, what these kids want, these 20-year-olds, is how do you make it on YouTube? And I thought, oh, Scott Bradley, because I'm his huge fan, whatever. So I used not the excuse. I said, I want to tell my students how you did it. And he also, as well as his book, he has a PDF for musicians. So somebody like you who's probably playing a piano bar in Tel Aviv every night, suddenly you're not. What on earth do you do? He's written that PDF just for the sheer joy of it. And when you try and probe him on how do you make money and is it advertising and this and that and the other, his eyes just glaze over. It's like he is making a lot of money. He's got house in Nashville, house here, house there. So, and that is because he does albums and he does touring. So the Postmodern Jukebox Show tours. Without him, it's any bunch of musicians you like, but just Cirque du Soleil. You're not looking for a particular star. So his model is fascinating. And because of the university credentials that you and I have on the basis of either I'm going to get you into the university, I'm going to talk to you about it, we can open the door to anybody. So your situation now is you've got this little Mel's YouTube, here's Mel. Okay. And you're putting it out there just for the sheer joy of it. Now, and you're doing the correct things, which is telling everybody, and you've got the format right and this, that, and the other. It may turn into a song like Let It Be, or it might be a song that I wrote years ago. You don't know. But if it does, you suddenly got traction. You've got millions of people contacting you. The model for making money out of that, and you can do what you like with the money, but you will have the recognition, which is, you see, this is what that your podcast is one of the popular ones, and frankly, you don't know why. I mean, why is the BMI not popular?
Mike, let's say that you're the person. Let's say that you are the person who says, "Mel, this has potential." I say, "Okay, Wonderful. Be my partner. Make it happen. I'm doing this for fun. Now, within a couple of months, probably I'll have to go back looking for a job.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will perhaps be in a situation where I want to make money having fun.
Sure.
But,
okay.
but right now, I'm just having fun. I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
Okay. And I do this with my students.
Yeah.
If you could write a song for the Beatles way back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and get paid $100,000, but not have your name credit, would you sell them the song?
No.
Okay. Would you sell them the song for $500,000?
Speak to my manager agent. He talks about money. If I've written a song that
no name credit.
Oh, no name credit. You are being taken for a sucker. It's like all these musicians who
$1 million.
It's not about them. I don't talk money. You speak to somebody who wants
to. So let me ask you the other question.
Okay.
You've written the song. The Beatles love it, and they want to record it.
Mm-hmm.
But Apple isn't doing so well,
mm-hmm.
and they say, listen, we'll give you residuals. We'll give you $5, but your name will be this song. Here Comes the Sun by Mike Southon.
Yeah.
You sell it to them for $5.
If I liked the people I was talking to, and I'm sure I'd like the Beatles personally. If I liked, I'd be speaking with Neil Aspinall, and I know his son, and I'm thinking, do I like this guy in the broadest sense? And he's saying, look, it's a good deal for you. You get your name up there. We keep the money.
It's a terrible deal for you, let's say.
Yeah, well,
you still do it?
If I got to hang out with the Beatles for an hour, I'd do it.
You see, I kind of rest my case.
Well, okay.
So even with you, the beer mat entrepreneur, mm-hmm. The guy who made millions, the guy who teaches people to be financially successful.
Yeah.
Even for you, it's not about the money. So of course.
Okay. I don't teach people how to be financially successful per se. It's in there because if it is, you are Scott Bradley or you've hit the magic, whatever it is, your mouthwash is really popular and nobody quite knows why. I point you towards a finance person who makes you make the money, just make sure they don't rip you off. I teach you to be wealthy and happy. So you're passionate about mouthwash. If you're not, do something else. Do it for a bit, then sell it to someone.
So I teach my students to be amazing.
Yeah, there we go. Exactly.
To be amazing.
Yeah, be in flow, whatever your flow is. Be amazing, understand yourself, be a good person, don't trample over people, etc., etc., etc. Many of them will not listen to you. And if you're going to be a mentor, you have to let that go. And some of them will say, I got the most stupid advice from Mike Southon. He told me something that's completely wrong. And people come back and say, well, Mike Southon's an idiot. I'm like, yeah, I probably am. I don't know. But I've forgotten about them anyway. Whereas the ones where you look into their eyes, they get it. And then they come back saying, you probably don't remember me, but that's where the joy is. Because let's close on something very interesting, because you said because we can talk about this, you still have some unfulfilled ambitions. You listed some, we all have this. You want to sing with Diana Krall. You want to, or this, that, and the other. Absolutely. And, everybody should have a dream, because as they say in South Pacific, if you don't have a dream, how are you going to have a dream come true? So it's good when you're young, have that picture of the yacht you always wanted, or this or that or the other, or the person you want to meet. And how do you make this happen? Here's what I tell the students, which is wait to be invited. Wait for somebody who knows Diana Krall, who likes you, and they'll approach them on your behalf saying, Diana, here's why you should do a duet with Mel.
So when the singer is ready, the Diana Krall appears.
Exactly. Because if you ask the universe, or God, if you believe in God, for things, what God or the universe will ask you is, oh, interesting, you want to sing with Diana Krall.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Then the universe, if you're listening, will say, why? Now, if the answer is, so I can go back to my old school and boast, or I can boast to all my friends I sang with Diana Krall, that's the wrong answer. It's like, why should I let you be even more boastful? Mike, you're boastful enough.
So you're right. Can I tell you a parting story as way of example? So my ambition is to become a traditionally published writer, along with all the stuff I'm giving away for free.
Sure.
To be good enough to become agented and published by a trad publisher.
Okay.
And you have to be very lucky, but you have to be really super good. And I've been working on that. And that keeps me young. That dream that I haven't, that makes me a 25-year-old. Okay. But yeah, we have two more minutes.
Here's the problem you have with that, which is absolutely, I've done it. I've sat in front of publishers and pitched them. It's a bit like being an artist and you have an A&R manager. Here's somebody in the middle who's deciding, Melvin, yes or no. And there's a very strong chance, as we discovered with the Beer Med Entrepreneur, they may make the wrong decision. They may, and when they publish, they put it out there and they hope it's going to sell. They don't do any promotion for you. We promoted our own book and we were successful.
Okay. Yeah. Mike, 60 companies turned the mouthwash down.
But what I'm hearing is, for you, it's very important to have, for example, published by Pearson.
One book.
Yeah, one book published by Pearson.
Pearson, Scholastic, Penguin.
Whoever it is. So you can,
one book.
Exactly. And the reason for that is you'll feel good about yourself. And also perhaps you can say to people, oh, by the way, you'll like me even more because I'm published by Pearson or Scholastic or whatever.
No, I will like me more because I didn't get published because I'm somebody's uncle or nephew. I wrote a manuscript which was good enough.
There we go.
Okay, and that's what I'm aspiring to. But I only have 2 minutes, and I didn't tell you the story.
Okay.
So the story is, I'm 18 years old on the kibbutz, and my friend Stephen Plout, who's no longer with us, teaches me to chicken pluck like Donovan, to sing, yellow is the color. And I spend my whole life loving Donovan. And about 10 years ago, I bought one of his old vinyl records.
Yeah.
And then next week, I'm in a meeting with Jeff Pulver. And who walks into the conference?
There you go.
Donovan.
Yeah.
I didn't have enough gumption to go over to Donovan, but Jeff pulled me over. To make a long story very short, the next day, I am with my friend Untitled Chapter on the piano playing Mellow Yellow, joined by Donovan, and then we go off into a corner in the restaurant, me and Donovan, and we sing my favorite Donovan song, Me and Donovan.
Fantastic. So tick in the box, you've done that.
So,
And maybe on a future podcast, which is, how could we all ask the universe for something like that to happen and make it happen? So on that point, Mel, it's been absolutely brilliant fun. We could talk all day about everything because we got so much in common. Thank you for the honor of interviewing you.
Well, thank you for the honor of being interviewed by you. And I think next time I'm going to bring you back to You've Got Mel because we have unfinished business.
Of course we do.
Lots of unfinished business.
That's brilliant. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.